This is literally shining in my bedroom window. Am I the only one that see this? Yo, am I the only one that see this? I just finished praying and I look out my window and this is what I see. I've never seen it like this before. This is nutty. Y'all look at that. This is great. Do y'all see what I see?
Yo, guys, tell me what the fuck. I did a lot of clips, but look at this shit. This is in New Jersey. Can somebody explain to me what the fuck this is? I saw the drones that everybody's talking about somewhere else, but I couldn't stop the car to take a video because I was on the road and there was trucks and there's nowhere to stop. But look at this. Can somebody tell me what the fuck this is? This is in Jersey. I'm in Jersey. I just finished working. Look at this shit. You tell me those are drones moving in that pattern and so fast. You're going to see how they move so fast. And then they've been moving because they were all the way somewhere else where I was driving and they're moving. It's not like they're staying in one spot. And sometimes they create two rings. Look at that. What the fuck is that? Can somebody explain to me what the fuck that is? Anyone?
That shit disappeared. Nigga, there's two of them sitting right over the fucking building, bro. That's not the city. The city's the opposite way. Man, what the fuck? What the fuck? And babe, that shit's spinning like a UFO. Like, that shit has 6 of them. Look at the fucking thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
What the hell that is? Cause there's something coming out of that. It's going down further? That's crazy. It's behind the trees now.
See, it's moving down.
I know, I'm trying to get it on. There you go. It's going down. I wonder what the hell. Damn, 5 in the morning.
Zechariah 5, starting at verse 1. Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold, a flying roll. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. Then said he unto me, This is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For everyone that stealeth shall be cut off as on this side according to it, and everyone that sweareth shall be cut off as on that side according to it. I will bring it forth, saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name, and it shall remain in the midst of his house, and shall consume it with the timber thereof and the stones thereof. First, I want to say, Call Allah, all glory, honor, and praises due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Kakadash. I want to give double honors to my elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. And I want to say peace and citations to the hopeful elect, Akim and Aqua, that are in this truth, subscribing to the truth and pushing the truth. So we're going into chariots, so-called, how the world calls them UFOs, but they're chariots of Israel. Now, and this is how we're going to be delivered out of Babylon the Great, and how the Israelites will be delivered out of Babylon the Great, and all the Israelites scattered across the 4 corners of the earth. Going to be beamed up right before Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai puts that final judgment of those ICBM missiles on Babylon the Great and other parts of the world. Because as it says in verse 4, it shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name. And who's the thief? Esau Edom, the so-called white man. The white man is the thief. He stole Native Americans' land, which is America. He stole the land and named it America, after Edomite. And, the so-called white man, basically, as it says in the scriptures, the nation of Edom, the Caucasians, they are the hammer of the earth. They go around with the sword, killing, destroying, and taking others' goods and claiming it as their own. So the curse that Yahweh sent out to them is the chariots, the so-called UFOs, upon them and upon the rest of the world, the heathen nations as well, for what they done to the children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and the rest of the Israelites that are scattered across the world and look like the heathen nations on the outside, but their seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is Exodus chapter 40, starting at verse 34. This is when the Israelites were just delivered from Egypt, from the hand of Pharaoh. Starting at verse 34. Then a cloud, and a cloud is a chariot. The world calls a so-called UFO is a chariot, which is a cloud in this translation. Then the cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord, Yahweh, Bashem Al-Shai, filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation because the cloud abode thereon, and the glory of the Lord, Yahweh, Bashem Al-Shai, filled the tabernacle. And when the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the children of Israel went onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud were not taken up, then they journeyed not till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud, the Lord Yahweh Bashem shall say, was upon the tabernacle by day, and fire was on it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. So this was a massive chariot because all of Israel could see it. And it was a lighting. It was basically a light for the Israelites. So if it was nighttime, the Israelites could see because of the chariot was there during the night. And if it was daytime, they didn't even realize that it was daytime because the chariot was always there when they're on their journeys. Giving them light so they could see where they were going on their journeys. This is Revelation 1, verse 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him, even so, Amen. So Yahushua, on his second return, he's going to come back with the fathership and with multiple chariots with the fathership, with the fathership chariot. So every eye will see him because everyone's going to look up and see, the fathership and the thousands, the 20,000 chariots with Yahushua on the fathership. And we're going to get that precept. This is 2nd Ezra's chapter 13. This is Ezra's seeing the vision of Yahushua coming on the fathership with the 20,000 chariots to fight in the Middle East, to fight against the heathens, to destroy the heathens. And we're going to start at verse 3. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. So Yahushua and the angels in the chariots, because in the chariots are controlled by the angels, the heavenly hosts. Yahweh Bashem Ashai has an army of angels in the chariots, in the so-called UFOs. So it's going to be Yahushua and the fathership, and then the 20,000 angels controlling the UFOs, controlling the chariots with him to fight in the Middle East with Yahushua. Verse 4, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. And so it lets you know the chariots, the so-called UFOs, will be able to shoot laser beams. Verse 5, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. And that's talking about the heathens, in the Middle East trying to fight against Yahushua on his second return. Verse 6, but I beheld, and lo, he graved himself a great mountain and flew upon it. That's the fathership that's being talked about in verse 6. It's so big. I'm going to keep reading. But I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. That's how big Yahweh's fathership is. So on his second return, when he returns with his fathership, we're not going to be able to see where it starts or where it finishes. That's how big it's going to be. It's going to completely cover up the entire sky. So literally every eye will see him. It's impossible not to see him. Verse 8. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet there's fight. So the heathens, when they try to fight against Yahushua and the angels over at the Middle East, they're going to be afraid. But Yahweh will put the spirit on them to fight anyways. Verse 9. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. But I only saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. And yeah, when Ezra saw this vision, he was afraid. Because imagine seeing Yahweh on the fathership with 20,000 angels in their chariots, in the so-called UFOs, with Yahweh. And imagine that. And so, anyone going over there to the Middle East to fight that Third World War, you're not coming back. You're just not coming back. So it is what it is. And I want to go to Psalm 68, verse 17. The chariots of the Most High are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them, as in Sinai, in the holy place. So this is to confirm that Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai has an army of angels are ready to go with Yahweh Shai in his second coming to fight against the heathen. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. Now we're going into how the elect are going to be saved by the chariots, by the so-called UFOs. Starting at verse 13. But I will not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Yahushua will the Most High bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that which we are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of the Most High, and the dead in Hamashiach shall rise first. So the elect, those of the elect that die in Jacob's trouble, guess what? They're gonna raise up first. Those that have to die, taste the sword, they're gonna get raised up first onto the chariots, onto the so-called UFOs. So verse 17. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. And it's talking about the so-called UFOs chariots, because being caught up in the clouds. Verse 17. So it's telling you we're going to be redeemed by chariots, so-called UFOs, as the world calls them. In verse 18, wherefore comfort one another with these words. So we're supposed to comfort, the hopeful elect are supposed to comfort one another with these words, because our salvation is near. That's why Yahweh says, look up, your redemption draws nigh. Because sometimes when you look up, you're going to see a chariot. Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai will give you that, that little, that taste of it. And Lord willing, if you be that elect, to be redeemed and beamed up in those chariots. And only the elect are going to get saved, in the chariots. I'm going to go to Isaiah 11, verse 11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Patros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamat and from the islands of the sea. So Yahweh Shemashai is going to redeem the elect from all four corners of the earth, from because Israel was scattered all across the earth, as it says in Deuteronomy 28, verse 64. But Yahweh Shemashai is not going to save the entire nation. He's only going to save the elect. 2/3 of our people won't make it, but 1/3 will make it. The 1/3 is the 144,000 men, prophets, and then the rest of the 1/3 is men, women, and children. That'll make it. Israelites. Only Israelites only the elect, which are Israelites, will make it at the end and get beamed up in the chariots, so-called UFOs. And I have lessons on that on my channel, and it's titled Only for the Elect. You can watch that and get a better explanation upon that. And continuing into Isaiah 11, verse 12, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel. So he's going to assemble the outcasts of Israel, which is the northern kingdom, and gather together the dispersed of Judah, which is the southern kingdom, from the four corners of the earth. So Yahweh Shemashah is going to save the elect of Israel. This is Isaiah 26, starting at verse 20. Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation be overpassed. For behold, the Lord Yahweh, Hashem Shah, coming out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth also shall disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain. So this is talking about when the elect gets beamed up into the chariots. They're going to be protected from that judgment that Yahweh Hashem is going to bring upon the earth, which will be the second death. The second death is the ICBM missiles hitting Babylon the Great and other parts of the world. But the first death was the flood, and the second death is the ICBM missiles, the nukes, thermal nukes, hitting Babylon the Great mainly and other parts of the world. So the elect won't have to experience that. They're going to be in the chariots watching from above. I want to go to verse 20, verse 6. Blessed and holy is he that have part in the first resurrection. On such the second death had no power, but they shall be priests of the Most High and of Hamashiach, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. So if you're of the elect that gets beamed up, you won't have to taste, nukes. You won't have to taste ICBM missiles. You don't have to be a part of that second death of the lake of fire, because America will turn to the lake of fire, because Yahweh Shemashah is going to overkill it with ICBM missiles. And so blessed are you that have no part in that second death and are beamed up and, delivered and resurrected and, get to watch from above. And I'm going to get that precept as well. This is Revelation chapter 15, starting at verse 2. This is talking about the elect. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of the Most High. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of the Most High, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord, power almighty, just and sure are thy ways, thou King of saints. So the elect are going to be the ones to overcome the image of the beast, the mark of the beast, the image of the beast, the number of his name, all that. They're not going to take the RFID micro C-hip that Esau Edom, the so-called white man, is going to enforce upon the whole world. They're going to pass the hour of temptation and not take it. The elect are going to endure to the end, even if it means losing their own life. So, Lord willingly, we be of that number, we be of that elect that endures to the end, and, gets beamed up into the chariots, so-called UFOs, and we get to see the destruction from above and celebrate with Yahushua while singing the song of Moses to Yahweh and Yahushua. This is Wisdom of Solomon 5, starting at verse 1. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him, and made no account of his labors. So everyone in the world doesn't make account of our labors. 2/3 of our people in the heathen nations don't make account of our labors that the prophets are doing, the shoemen of the Lord are doing, with the videos, going on the highways and hedges and preaching this truth. They don't make account of our labors. They see it. I'll keep reading. Verse 2, when they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for. Yeah, when they see the elect getting beamed up in the so-called UFOs, the so-called UFOs into the chariots, they're going to be like, wow, they're going to be stunned because they never thought salvation would look like that, would be that. It's so far beyond what they could comprehend in their minds. That's why only an elect, only a remnant is going to get the truth, because the truth is not meant for everyone to get. The vision was not given to everyone to get. So that's why only the elect can get it. And Lord willingly, Amratazah, we be of that elect. Verse 3, and they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision and proverb of reproach. We fools accounted his life madness and his end to be without honor. How is he numbered among the children of the Most High, and his lot is among the saints? So they're going to be, when they see the elect getting beamed up and delivered, they're going to be surprised, because they're going to be surprised at who's getting delivered. They thought that, how can I say this? They just would have never thought that the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans were Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai's chosen people. They would have never thought that. So when they see it, they're going to be like, how are they Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai's people? Because for so long, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, the nation of Edom, the Caucasians, they lied and whitewashed history. So people can't believe when the so-called black man, the so-called Latino man, the so-called Native American Indian man is getting saved and beamed up in the chariots, while ICBM missiles are raining down on the people who are not getting delivered, which will be the heathen nations. And the 2/3 of our people, the Israelites who don't repent. So, they're going to be in awe and they're going to be in shock when it actually, happens in front of their face. And with that, I want to say, call Allah, all glory, honor, and praises due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. I want to give double honors to my elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. And I want to say peace and salutations to the hopeful elect out there. Lord willingly, I pray that this was an edifying lesson. And with that, I want to say Shalom.